Give him some glory. Come on, just open your voice, open your mouth and magnify him. Oh yeah, he's worthy. He's the great I am. Come on, somebody, come on. Oh yes, he is. He's the Holy One. Oh, bless you. He is the King of Kings.
Preach with enticing words of man's wisdom and a demonstration of power of the Holy Ghost. Let your faith will not stand in wisdom of men, but in the power of the Almighty God, the great I am. As we contemplate this message, what it does for us, what it will do for us, it's much more than just I am. As we unfold this message this morning, I want to be able to look at ourselves and say, Lord, if you remember that, right? What are you saying to me? We're going to take it individually. Lord, what are you saying to me? So it's much less about landing and more about launching. It's less about what God has done and more about the greater things that God is going to do. The greater things are yet to come. The problem is that we have a lack of God. We can talk it, we find it difficult to walk it. There's a defining truth here, and that is that God absolutely is. Or to say the text says, God is who he is. Or to say it more philosophically, God absolutely is. Nothing is more basic and nothing is more ultimate than the fact that God is. Nothing is more foundation to your life, to your marriage, to your job, your health, your future, than God is. God is. So as we look at Exodus 3, let me point out some things to you. Let me set the stage for you. For several years, several centuries, the people of Israel, God's chosen people, that lived as aliens in Egypt. For a long time, they had lived there as slaves. Now, the time of deliverance is drawing near. So God chooses Moses to bring the people out of slavery and into the promised land. But in verse number 11, Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children out of Egypt?" God said, verse 12, "But I will be with you. And this shall be a sign that you shall have, that you have brought the people out of Egypt, and you serve God on this mountain." That brings us to our text. The children in slavery for centuries, God is about to move in their life. Lord, what are you saying to me? As we contemplate this message, can we identify with being in slavery? Hello, somebody. Now God is about to deliver. We want to question God. There are three things that God says about himself. God says, "You asked me my name." I'm going to tell you three things about it. First, he says, verse 14, God said to Moses, "I am who I am." He did not say that was his name. He said, in effect, before you worry about my name, where I line up among the many gods of Egypt and Babylon. Even before you wonder if I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I want you to know this, that I am who I am. I absolutely am. Before you get my name, get my being. That I am who I am. Secondly, he says this, say to the people of Israel, I am have sent me to you. Here he is not yet even given his name to Moses. He's building a bridge between his being and his name. He simply puts the statement of his being in the place of his name. He says, I am have sent me to you. The one who is, the one who absolutely is, have sent me to you. And third, he says, this people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, have sent me to you. He's now given a name, and that name is Lord. Lord. He says, I am have sent me to you. The one who absolutely is have sent me to you. And so, when we look at the word Yahweh, he finally gives his name. It's always translated Lord. Here's an amazing truth. That God gave himself a name. And over 4,000 times in the Old Testament, that when we hear the name, we think that he is who he is. 10 things I want to leave with you right quick that means God to be who he is. First of all, God absolutely means that he never had a beginning. Nobody made God. God simply is, always was, always will be. There is no beginning with God. Secondly, God's absolute being means that God will never end. If he did not come into being, he cannot go out of being. He is what he is. There's no place to go outside of that being. There's only he. Third, God absolutely means God is absolutely reality. There's no reality before him. He is simply there. There's no space, universe, or emptiness, only God. Four, God's absolute being means that God is utterly independent. He depends on nothing to bring him into being, or support him in his counsel to make him what he is. Fifth, God's absolute being means that everything that is not of God depends totally on God. The entire universe is utterly secondary. It came into being by God and stays into being moment by moment on God's decision to keep it in being. 6, God's absolute being means that all the universe is in comparison to God has nothing. Let me say that again. God's absolute being means that all the universe is, by comparison to God, has nothing. All that we see, all that we are made by in this world, in the galaxy, is just compared to God as nothing. 7, God's absolute being means that God is constant. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He cannot be improved upon. He's not becoming anything. He is who he is. 8, God's absolute being means that he's absolutely stand as a picture of truth. There's no law book to which he looks to know what is right. He himself is the standard for what is right, what is true, and what is beautiful. 9th, God's absolute being means that God does whatever he pleases and is always right. There's no constraints, on him from the outside that will hinder him in doing whatever he pleases. And 10th, God's absolute being means that he's most important and most valuable reality compared to anybody else in the universe. He is worthy of all our interests. Now, as I went through that real quick, he says that he's the great I am. When we contemplate that, we look at God as being who he is, because God is. He is. He's whatever you need him to be. In John 8:58, there was a talk about Abraham. There was much conversation about Abraham. Jesus interpreted that, and he said this to us. He said, before Abraham was, I am. I am. In John 14:6, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. We will understand that in comparison to the great I am, God cannot be improved upon. There's nothing greater than God. When we look at God as being the great I am, he now transferred that to us. As we look at ourselves and our situation and our circumstances in life, if we are connected to God, then we can become the little I am. Amen. Connected to the great I am. And when we're connected to the great I am, then we can see God move in our lives. Moses was given a task to take the children from slavery to the promised land. God is saying to us this morning, you want to take us to the promised land. You want to take us out of slavery. That slavery being tied up on our jobs, tied up in our relationship, tied up in our marriages, tied up, tangled up, tied up. God wants to free us. And who's going to do it? He said, I am. And so when we transfer that to ourselves, we look at our situation, many of us are not going to get out of our situation. We find ourselves year after year after year, things just constantly getting worse because we're not connected to the great I am. I am. And when we transfer that to ourselves, whatever situation you find yourself, you got to say, I am. I am. I am. I've got financial problems, but I am going to get out. I got relationship problems, but I am going to get out. When we transfer that and look at our situation and circumstances, then we can identify with what God is saying to us this morning. He is the great I am. Well, let me go down the street. Many of us are looking to mama, daddy, somebody to deliver us out of our situation and circumstances. Don't you know that same person that you're looking for is looking for somebody too? That same person that you're dependent upon is dependent upon somebody? Don't you know that? And so when I look at my situation and make it personal, I've told you before that I have been diagnosed with Parkinson, but I have not talked. Now, many of you will not know that unless I tell you, because I've been praying to the great I am.
I give you